The Lakers dominate the NBA playoffs, and Texas almost gets their wheels blown off in Lubbock. Also, Mike Leach headlines the college football world once again. This is the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point. Dude,
you like okay. Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like
you're
I'm the Feinbaum of the show.
By the way, that looks... Ohio State, is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh, man.
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the torso.
Hello and welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. I am your host, Daniel Shee, and thanks for joining us on a Friday morning. This morning, joining me, we have Olivia Guzman and Robert Trevino. How are y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine as well. And Robert, obviously the Feinbaum of the show. How are you?
Feinbaum of the show. You see that on the intro. I'm doing good. I feel a little bit for you doing this with such of a time difference, but let's get it rolling.
Well, it's not a 1-0 Sports Show if we're not doing it in the morning, and it is the morning here. So we always start with the who's hot and who's not. And Robert, we're gonna start with you. Who's your who's hot of the week?
Well, this week I'm going to keep my who's hot, who's not in more of a macro scale. So I'm going to go leagues. Who's hot this week? The NBA. So game 1 of the NBA Finals. I watched it. All of my roommates watched it. Every other person I know that loves sports, at least in some capacity, watched it. And what a huge win for the NBA to be able to pull this off during the pandemic. Adam Silver. A lot of credit also goes out to Michelle Roberts, the executive director of the NBA PA. The Players Association, that is, and then also Chris Paul as the players representative in the NBA PA. I think they deserve a lot of credit. I think Disney also, the fact that they have an entire location for them, entire infrastructure for them to do this is such a huge win, not only for Disney, for ESPN, for the NBA, for all of their partners, and also just for us, the fans. I think to see this product in the midst of what has otherwise been a very tumultuous and kind of downtrodden year, to get to watch some basketball, to get to watch LeBron go up against Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals. I think the NBA, they're hot right now.
Yeah, and we'll get into the NBA Finals later in this block, so stay tuned for that. But Olivia, we're turning to you. Who's your who's hot of the week?
My who's hot is not as macro. My who's hot is the Chiefs. So staying with the NFL, for me personally, with my who's hot and who's not. But the Chiefs are one of the NFL's 3-0 teams. As the reigning Super Bowl champs, they look good. They've had 2 hard games, one against the Chargers where they had to win in overtime, and one against the Ravens, which the Ravens are also a team that before I was going to say who's hot. And it's sad to me that the Ravens are no longer one of the NFL's 3-0 teams because they look good too. But the Chiefs are looking very good, and they still look like last year's Super Bowl winning team. So for me, the Chiefs.
And let's not forget their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, announced that they're expecting this week. So the team is getting as hot as they can. But Robert, who's your not hot of the week?
Well, I'm going to keep it once again, as Olivia pointed out, that I'm going to put it on the macro level here. Who's not the NFL? So whereas I just gave this whole rant, this whole speech about the NBA being able to pull this off, and obviously they did have the advantage of being able to have a true bubble. But the NFL now, with the Titans and the Steelers game on Sunday being postponed due to COVID, now a little bit of the NFL season, these kind of hot takes that people were throwing out in the middle of the summer, they could become reality. What happens if a team gets COVID and can't play a certain week? How does the schedule continue with COVID, with COVID-related cancellations, maybe postponements of games? I hope we can get through a season. Personally, I think the Colts, my team, are looking pretty good. So I want us to have a season. If I was a Browns fan, maybe not. But who's not right now? The NFL, and we'll see how they handle it. We'll see how Roger Goodell and the Players Association try to solve this problem that the NBA had to face 5 months ago. You would think the NFL would have had some contingency plan, especially since the pandemic began now over half a year ago in America. And so now it's up to the NFL. But right now they're not hot.
Yeah, and if you compare the NFL to the NBA, how they have contained the virus so far, the NFL isn't really looking that hot right now. Olivia, who's not hot of the week?
My who's not hot of the week. Robert's given 2 macro answers. I've given a micro answer, so I'm going to give a little bit of an in-between. The Big 12 is my not hot of the week. The Big 12 is honestly a mess right now. I think that Texas beating Tech saved the Big 12's playoff chances because OU losing to Kansas State and teams that were supposed to dominate the Big 12 have not been doing their best. And Big 12's a mess right now. And I think that going forward, these next few games, that there's going to have to be some true leader come out on top if the Big 12 wants a team in the playoffs.
Yeah, but to me, anytime we see OU losing, that's a good thing to see. But think that these are really great picks for the who's hot and who's not. But before we head to B block, let's do some embrace debates. And to start it off, let's go back into Orlando and the NBA bubble. The Lakers and the Heat are facing off in the NBA Finals, and the Lakers won Game 1 quite dominantly. Have they already won this NBA Finals? What do y'all think? Olivia, is going to start with you.
No, I don't think they've already won it. Do I think they look great? Absolutely. But the Heat. The Heat has had. The Heat has had a really good playoff run so far, and I think that for them, it's just one game, and if they can get everything together, I think it's going to be a really good battle between the two teams.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the Heat got there for a reason, and it should be a pretty good matchup. Robert.
Well, it's like Kobe Bryant said all those years ago when he was asked why he's not smiling when they're up 2-0. The job's not finished. The job's not done. But to look at this question from probably the intent that we had when writing it, the Lakers have pretty much sealed this one up. I'm sorry. Like, I understand the series isn't over until they hand the Larry O'Brien trophy, give the MVP, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The Lakers have this one in control. I said Lakers in 4 coming in. I was roundly normally laughed at, or at least, given a stern warning to not pick a team in 4 in the NBA Finals, especially when the Heat look so hot. But this Heat team cannot compete with the Lakers. I think the Lakers have already won this one. The question will be, are they going to be a gentleman about sweeping this team? Are they going to give them at least one game, or will it just be out in 4?
Yeah, and with some of the Game 1 injuries on the Heat side, it just seems like the competition is shifting towards the Lakers even more than when this series begins. But how much does this series affect LeBron's legacy? Robert, we're going to start with you.
Well, if I'm going to talk a lot about, they've sealed this one up, they can't compete, then this one actually is going to be a huge impact on LeBron's legacy and the fact that he needs to win this series. And this will be a huge boost for his resume, winning an NBA title with a third team, doing it with Anthony Davis, yes, but arguably being the moral and the true leader of this team, really leading this team in his 17th year in the league. I think this would make him the greatest player of all time. Yes, I think he already is, but I think this would give him that resume to say, look at this, in this season, over the course of my career, he has been nothing but a champion. He has been nothing but the greatest player that everyone expected him to be. He's done nothing but exceed expectations. And now to win titles with 3 different teams, this series affecting LeBron's legacy, I'd say that's a minimum. I'd say if he wins this series, especially if he does it in 4 games, he's the greatest player of all time.
The only thing missing from that is a direct at Thomas Fitch, who's directing the show right now, who's not the biggest LeBron fan in the world. But Olivia, what do you think about the series affecting LeBron's legacy?
I think that if he wins this series, just like Robert said, everything that he would be, I do think he's one of the greatest players of all time. If you want to make the statement that he is the greatest player of all time, I do think that this if he wins a series, especially in 4, that would help it. However, I think that if he loses this series, I don't believe that it will do anything to change his legacy. He's already established himself so much as one of the greatest of all time, and I think that for him, winning helps, but losing won't hurt.
I would agree with that. I would say if he loses this series, it does give a lot more credence to the people who would bring up his bad performances in the finals. I do think this would be worse than losing to the Mavericks in 2011.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. I think in this case, the Lakers being such a huge favorite going into the finals, it's kind of there to lose it. And if they did lose it, I think that can still affect LeBron's legacy. So I think it's a both way kind of thing for LeBron. Let's move over to the gridiron. We're heading to the NFL. The NFC East has not been winning games. All 4 teams in that division have a losing record. Their best team on paper, record-wise, are the Cowboys and the Washington football team, who are 1-2. So definitely not an impressive division so far. Who's winning that division, you guys? Robert, we can start with you.
Well, hey, I'm looking at the standings too, and looking at these, I mean, oh man, talk about 4 teams with no future, no immediate future, at least that is. And for my money, I'm sorry, I am not a big Dallas Cowboys fan, but I am going to have to go with Dallas simply because of who they have at quarterback. I think that the experience of Dak Prescott will carry them over in this very weakened division. I think that the Washington football team, they have a lot of talent. At least for the NFC East. I mean, hey, look at them. They're 1-2. They're leading their division. But I just don't think that they're going to come out and look that good. You saw them. They had a 14-point loss last week to the Cleveland Browns, who I also trashed earlier in the show. So I obviously cannot pick the Washington football team to win this division. I think the Cowboys have some experience. I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys overall in that division might have the most talent, but they're not showing it yet so far. Olivia?
I am a Cowboys fan, so I'm going to go with the Cowboys. The NFC East is not looking too good at all right now. However, the Cowboys, I believe, are the team that is going to be on top. But do I think that any NFC East team has a shot at the Super Bowl? No. But I think that the Cowboys are the team that's going to come on top of this division.
Yeah, and just by the way, all 4 teams have an average point differential of negative 24.25. So it's going to be a tough playoff for anyone who wins this division. Before we come back, I kind of forgot how that one goes. But
when we come back,
we will be heading back to the gridiron as we will review the Texas football game last week and previewing their upcoming TCU game. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the 1-0 Sports Show. Welp was my reaction when I saw the post-game highlights of the Texas Longhorns and Texas Tech Red Raiders game. The Texas Longhorns came out of Lubbock with a 63-56 win in overtime after they were favored to win by 18 on the road. Certainly a very close game, one that Texas fans was not really comfortable, especially late in that game. Robert, Olivia, this is supposed to be a national championship caliber team. Are you guys ready to hit the panic button after this game? Olivia, we can start with you.
During the game, I was ready to hit the panic, but my Apple Watch thought I was having a heart attack during the game. It kept notifying me to breathe. But no, the team, they have a lot of fixable mistakes that I think it's really good they're coming out this early in the season. And Tech put up a good game. I know we had talked earlier, just like on College Press Box and again on this show, that we were expecting Texas to completely dominate this game, but Tech showed up. They showed up. They had a good offense. They had good defense. They were completely shut us down in the second half. But I think it's really admirable that the Texas team fought till the very end, and that to me shows promise in a team that you can be down 15 points with less than 3 minutes left and you're not going to give up. And that's what Texas did. They set their mind to something and really quickly turned to what was going to be a huge embarrassment for Texas. They turned it around.
Yeah, I think that W at the end of the game really calmed a lot of the nerves for everybody around the program. Robert?
Yeah, well, it's like, am I ready to hit the panic button? I hit the give up button with 3 minutes and 13 seconds left. Texas was down 15 in Lubbock, Texas, to the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who had nearly lost to Houston Baptist University the week before. I was done. This team was finished. But they're back. And if you look at every team that comes back from one of these types of losses, every national championship caliber team who has a close scare, you can look at Alabama. They've nearly lost to Mississippi some of the years that they went on to win the national title. It's just one of those things that happens. One of these weeks, maybe somebody had too hard of a midterm. I got to be honest. I have the same class as, some of these guys. There's some tough midterms out there for real. So you never know what's happening. And especially in college football, that's part of what makes it so fun is it's unpredictable. And, we talk a lot about Oklahoma and our other rivals in the conference. But for Texas Tech, playing Texas, especially in Lubbock, Texas, I'm saying this as a Lubbock native, this is the game. This is the biggest game of your season. And for it to happen in week 2 is unbelievable, especially in a season in which, because of COVID-19, we didn't know if we were going to get these games. And for Lubbock, college football and college sports is basically half of our economy. So this game was so hyped. And for Texas to come in here and face a team that was going to give them their all and did. And for some reason, like Olivia said, they still fought back with 3 minutes and 13 seconds. That tells me so much, not only about Sam Ellinger's leadership, but about the leadership on defense that Tom Herman, Chris Ash have, and also their key defensive players. They have a huge control of this team, and I think the fact that they got this game almost out of their system means that I don't see Texas having a close game for the next month at least. I think this was a very important game for them to win, and if anything, at the end of the day, even after almost losing, after needing OT in Lubbock, I might be a little grateful that this game was this close.
Yeah, it certainly was entertaining coming down to the wire for that game. And like you said, Texas Tech, I think for most of the teams that play Texas, that is the game they circle in the beginning of the year, saying it will be a big win if we get this one. And most of the time, the other team, their inspirational speeches will be a little bit more heat than Texas in many ways, but it still comes down to the field, the play, the game itself, and there are many things that kind of went wrong for Texas. There are things that went wrong on offense, defense, and special teams. But which one had more problems in your opinion, and how do you guys fix that? Robert, we start with you.
Yeah, well, I think the defense and the special teams are huge. And specifically, I'm going to focus on the special teams. But that defense really needs to shore up its run defense. You cannot allow Sir Roderick Thompson to run 75 yards on one play all the way down the field and just score on your defense like that. But what I will say is with the special teams in regard to that, I think this is something that they're going to shore up. I know Tom Herman, this will not happen multiple weeks in a row. And who knows, maybe it was just kind of one of those just bad days that just happened somehow. Once again, it's college football. Anything can happen. So I'm not really, once again, hitting the panic button. But if Texas comes out and plays like this again, especially against Oklahoma or even Oklahoma State, they will lose. But I don't expect them to play like this again.
Yeah, the tackling had been a problem and was a problem during the Texas Tech game. Olivia, which facet of the game do you want to see the most improvement?
The defense. I think Texas has all of the tools on the field to not have this happen. They know they've been taught the technique. They have star power in individual players on the field. They should not be missing as many tackles as they have been. And the film is honestly embarrassing for this defense, considering the accolades that these guys have coming in. So I think that they just need to go back to practice. They need to start from scratch, tackling 101, so they can stay on their feet, make their tackles. I do think that this game was kind of a kick in the butt for them in some way, that they went into this game saying, we're playing Texas Tech. We're going to Houston Baptist put up this many points on us. We're going to be fine. But they can't go into that game, and they went in and just did not perform well. And I think that the defense knows that. And I got the opportunity of sitting in on the players' press conference, and Taquan Graham talked a lot about the plane ride home and all the meetings that the coaches are just very disappointed in them. They're disappointed in each other, and they know what they need to work on. And they're happy that they caught it this early on in the season. So they can continue to train, continue to get better, so it doesn't happen later on in the season when there's not enough time to fix it.
Yeah, and you look at Texas giving up 56. I mean, we understand we're in the Big 12. We understand this is college football, but 56 points to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The defense and also obviously, like you guys mentioned, the tackling can improve certainly. But let's go to the offense a little bit. Sam Ehlinger had a rough second half before scoring 14 points in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The offense came up with 3 points in the entire second half besides the span that really tied it up for the team. So which one are you guys focusing more on, the rough second half or the comeback effort? Olivia, we'll start with you.
I'm definitely going to focus more on the comeback effort. However, Sam Ehlinger had a good game. His stats look – I know there was a rough patch in the second half where they only scored 3 points. However, if the defense would have done their job, this should have been an easy win for Sam Ehlinger. The offense looked great in the second half, and I think Sam Ehlinger's leadership with the comeback really showed through. Most guys, when they see 3 minutes left on the clock with 15 points down, they're mentally checked out. They're giving up. They're just trying to get through the game. Sam Ehlinger decided that they were going to win the game, and that's what they did. The offense really showed up at the end, and that's very, very promising for more tougher games through the rest of the season where they are going to be in a crunch, and the leadership's there, which is really promising for this team.
Yeah, Sam Ehlinger definitely showed his leadership, definitely in the last part of the game. Robert?
Yeah, well, Olivia made a great point. I want to reiterate it. Texas had 38 points going into the final quarter of the game. An average college football game, you have 38 points after the end of the third quarter, you're probably trending on Twitter for something good. You're probably winning the game by at least 2 possessions. Olivia is completely right. The defense should have handled it, should have limited Texas Tech to fewer points, and that's why I'm really focused on Ehlinger's comeback efforts. And we know this. We knew senior season Sam. He loves Texas. He's always loved Texas. He's not going to let Texas lose. No good competitor would let their team lose. But it just feels like there's also a little bit more, almost in this COVID season, that Texas seems to be kind of a team of destiny of sorts. And I know it's now week 3, so it seems very early to be saying that. And we're not taking bold takes saying this is me definitively saying Texas is the team of destiny. But what I will say is, in a couple weeks, I may make that assertion because I think this team is on that track right now. And I think with Sam's leadership, his inability to lose, he cannot lose. It seems like as though even if he tried in this one, even if his team tried to lose, they couldn't lose this game. I just don't know how this comeback effort isn't seen as something huge for Sam Ehlinger on a Heisman level scale.
Yeah, and we have a lot of agreements for this Texas Tech review. And yeah, Ehlinger's comeback effort is quite historic in my opinion, and you don't see many teams coming back from 14 points down to 3 minutes left. Let's move on to the Texas and TCU game, which will be happening on Saturday at 11 a.m. You can catch that game on Fox. Texas is favored to win by 13 points. They're playing at home. So what do y'all think? What do y'all think of the game? Do you think Texas cover, or do you think TCU might have a chance of an upset? Robert?
Well, I think after last week, they're going to have these guys fired up. I expect Texas to have a 21-point lead at the end of the first quarter. As to what the end of score game will be, I can't really tell you, but I know Texas will come out ready for this one, and I know they'll win this one pretty big.
Yeah, we'll save the score for later in the show. Olivia?
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it will be a close game. If you look in the past, TCU has put up a good fight against Sam Ehlinger. They lost last year. They won Sam's sophomore year. So I don't think Texas will cover the spread. I think it will be about a 10-point game. Still 2 scores, but not completely covering the spread.
Yeah, Texas and TCU, always a good matchup within the state of Texas and the Big 12. But you look at this Texas team going into this game. Which players should we be focusing on during the game, Olivia?
I think Joshua Moore is a player to look out for. He's had 2 really, really solid games, and I think that if he's becoming Sam's go-to guy, and so I think he's the one you got to watch out for.
Yeah, Joshua Moore, one of the best receivers that Sam has in that offense. Robert?
I'm going to look at the other side of the ball, but the same general position. I'm going to look at the Texas secondary. I think we need to be looking out for Caden Stearns and really as a whole, the entire Texas secondary. Stearns had the game-ending interception, but especially in Big 12 play, going to be very important that this Texas secondary does not break down.
Yeah, the defense, again, like we said earlier, did not perform well against Tech, and they need to, against a stronger TCU team, they need to step up as well. But what are your bold predictions of the game? We'll focus on the score later in the show, but besides the score, what are your bold predictions of the game? Robert?
Well, I said I wasn't going to make a bold prediction earlier, but I am now. Texas is a top 3 team in the nation currently today. I would even argue potentially top 2. I think I've seen more out of them than I have out of Clemson. I think Texas has been more impressive. I think, probably not more impressive in terms of, barely beating Texas Tech on the road. However, I will say on paper, this team looks poised to go undefeated. They have now tackled a rival who nearly beat them while they were on the road. They got over that scare. Everybody believes in their quarterback, hands down. They have the entire city of Austin on their side. I think this team just looks like one of the top 3 teams in the country.
Well, and we'll also get to the rest of the top 4 later in the show. Olivia?
I think Texas is going to have an undefeated season. I think they're going to win the Big 12, and whether or not they make it to the college playoffs or a bowl game, I think they're going undefeated all the way. I think that my bold prediction is Sam is going to be in one of the top 2 picks for Heisman.
Well, in my short career in covering college football, all I know is in week 2, Texas always looks to go undefeated, and
this is different.
And we'll
this is the year, Daniel.
And I'll leave the rest of the sentence up to you guys. When we come back,
everything's changing.
That is true. When we come back, we will get to your questions on Twitter, and it should be a fun one. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the 1-0 Sports Show. Thank you for spending a Friday morning with us. We're going to get to your questions on Twitter as we send out a come ask us a question meme from Birdie Standers meme on Thursday, and we'll get to them right now. We'll start with Steve Helwick, the GOAT from TSTV Sports. Which player outside of Bam Adebayo do the Heat need a breakout performance from in Game 2 to turn this series around? And should they ditch the zone as well? Robert?
Well, I feel a little bit of pressure being asked an NBA question by the great Steve Helwick. We know he gets retweeted by Rob Perez on a daily basis apparently now. I keep seeing it. I'm like, wow, Steve, go you on Twitter. Let me get to your question, though. They definitely need Tyler Hero to break out. And you look at all the injuries that the Heat are kind of stacking up now. I think that Tyler Hero is the natural answer. And this is asking a lot of a guy who's around 15 days older than I am. But I think he definitely needs to step up if the Heat are going to win this series. As far as ditching the zone, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody you're going to be able to go one-on-one here and match up with LeBron and AD. I think the zone is ultimately the safer option. I think Eric Spoelstra knows that. I mean, if they go down early in Game 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they ditch the zone, but it would be kind of a thing of last resort.
Yeah, and with how Game 1 played out, it seems like Game 2 will be more important than most series. Olivia?
Couldn't have said it better myself. I don't want to sound redundant, so just everything Robert said, I completely agree with.
Totally informed take. Absolutely amazing. But Steve continued to fire those questions away. We're going to the college football, though. How hyped are you about the Mississippi State's air raid offense after an SEC passing record in week 1? And can they compete with Nick Saban in Alabama? Olivia?
I love it. Whenever another SEC team other than Bama shows up, it's a win for the nation. I think as a whole, people are, unless you're an Alabama fan, you're sick of Alabama. Do I think they can compete with Bama? I think time will tell as the season goes on, but I'm excited. This is going to be a good Mississippi State team.
Yeah, Mississippi looks like they're the real deal after beating LSU. Robert?
Well, what's going on right now in the SEC with Mike Leach and the air raid offense is the exact same thing that was going on when he joined the Big 12 and became the coach of Texas Tech around the turn of the century, introducing the air raid into the conference, at least to some degree, because you could argue last year Joe Burrow broke basically every passing record known to man in college football. So the air raid has kind of already been a thing in the SEC. However, there's just no way around it. This Mississippi State team looks great. Can they compete with Bama? No way. Nick Saban is the king of using his talent to his advantage. Mike Leach, to his credit, is a master at taking players that are forgotten, players that don't go to any other program, and making a great, sizable program doing it. I don't mean to bring up the fact that I'm from Lubbock, but I saw him do this in Lubbock growing up my entire life. And then he did it again in Washington State, in Pullman, Washington. And so for him to go to a less well-recruited SEC school and do this is definitely not surprising. And I'm very hyped to see where this goes. I definitely want them to go undefeated and beat Alabama. I love Alabama. I'm not tired of them, but it would be nice to see them lose. It would be nice to see them lose once, at least to a new team. Can they compete with Bama right now, though? I do not think so.
Yeah. It's always fun to have that underdog coming up and compete with Alabama. And now let's move over to baseball. The playoffs started earlier this week, and the Minnesota Twins got swept by the Houston Astros. And the question can only be asked by the one and only me. So the Twins have lost 18 playoff games in a row. Do their playoff struggles remind you of any other team in any sport, Robert?
Well, I like that you're implying that you are also the crowd as well as the host. I'm going to answer. I'm going to be a little bit, I guess, a little bit down on this one because they remind me of the Colts. The Colts have not had pretty much any playoff success in a while, in a long time. I'm talking about since they made the AFC Championship game and got destroyed by the New England Patriots 45-7 in what was later dragged out because it was the Deflategate game. So everybody talked about how the Colts got blown out for the next 5 years. So yes, I think the Twins' playoff struggles are not new to any longtime fan of any sports team, and they are certainly not foreign to Minnesota Twins fans.
Yeah, the Twins are just – I don't even know how to describe them in the playoffs. Olivia?
Sticking with the NFL, like Robert said, as someone who has been a lifelong Houston Texans fan, the playoffs are a nightmare for us. They never do well. They show up. We'll have one game where I think we've made it to the AFC. I don't think we actually have ever made it to the AFC Championship. However, I understand playoff struggles completely as a Houston Texans fan. It is hard. You know you're going to make it to the playoffs, but you have one game and that's it.
Yeah, sometimes just got to kowtow to the other team in Texas, the Cowboys. Texas just can never. The Texans just doesn't seem to be able to break out of their little brother status in the state of Texas. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may be totally wrong.
They don't play another team. They don't have the same type of division with the AFC South. I think they got a little bit of a bad shake when they were created. The fact that the greatest quarterback of all time was in their division, so they never had a chance really. Now I think they're looking good. I think they've shed their little brother label. If we're getting really into it, the Cowboys have had no success to speak of since 1995. Absolutely none. The Houston Texans nearly took down Patrick Mahomes last year. Nearly, but who else actually did? Nobody took them down. So the Texans, and they're, you can't rule them out this year of the AFC South. So I will disagree with you there, Daniel. They have shed their little brother status, at least for now.
That's the key, right? At least for now.
For now, I'm keeping it open. I'm keeping just in case they like go 0-16 or something.
No bold predictions yet.
Yeah, no bold predictions just yet for me.
All right, let's move over to the baseball diamond. We're going to combine two questions from Infield Fly Girl and Jay Tregeson. And Jay Tregeson, please don't kill me if I mispronounce your name. We're all buddies in the CPPL group chat. So in the MLB, there are a couple of new rules due to COVID, and I'm gonna ask you to pick your least favorite one. One is you start the runner on second base during extra innings. So that's only applicable to the regular season games. 7-inning doubleheaders, so they only play 7 innings if they have 2 games going on during the same game during the same day. And the 16 team postseason format, which is new under the COVID rules. Also, the National League is adopting this DH rule only this year so far. There's always a rumor saying they're going to try to permanently extend it. So out of those 4 new rules, which one is your least favorite? Robert, we're starting with you.
It's got to be runner on second for me. I mean, this is antithetical to the whole point of baseball. The whole point of baseball is that you have 3 outs, nobody's on base, and you need to get these guys around. 1, 2, 3, home. I mean, I don't understand how you could stick a guy on second. And ever since they did this, I've been a little bit furious about it, but nobody's asked me about it. So, yeah, runner on second. I can understand 7-inning doubleheaders. You know, it kind of stinks. It's not 9 innings, but do we really want to see that much baseball? I could get that. And it's not really interrupting the actual game itself. But putting a runner on second, it's a completely different game. Just hit 2 pop flies and you got a guy in already. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. I understand it's been done in the minor league. I don't like it there either. This is baseball. It should be kept baseball if you want to be completely traditional about it. If you don't want to be traditional about it, I have a ton of ways we can make the game way better. But if we want to be a stickler and keep it traditional, runner on second is the worst way to go.
Olivia?
I would agree with that. I think if you 7-inning doubleheaders, I mean, I think by changing the length of a baseball game, the game should, I mean, it's baseball, so each inning can go either way. If you were making an 11-inning game, it would be different than a 9-inning game either. But I do think a runner on second base, that's just absurd. That just changes the way baseball is. It's the foundation of baseball. You start with T-ball all the way to the professionals is you go to first base. And by changing it, it just changes the entire game.
All I'm going to say is if they had a runner on second base during the extra innings, the Reds and the Braves wouldn't have taken 13 innings to score 1 run. And fans, especially casual fans, like runs. Lastly, to round it up, we're going to hop on the time machine and go back to 2016 Texas football season. Should Charlie Strong had given another year to prove himself given his resume? Olivia?
No. Tom Herman's been a good addition to Texas football. Charlie Strong was a beloved coach here at the University of Texas and in Austin, but Tom Herman has done wonders with the Texas football program. Texas football has always been a beast in the NCAA, just college football always. However, maybe it's Sam, maybe it's Herman, but the two of them together have made a great team and have turned Texas around.
Robert?
I mean, yeah, to me, asking this question kind of feels like, should John McCain have chosen Sarah Palin for the 2008 campaign? I mean, it's like we're so far removed from that world completely, number one. And number two, I think both sides have been doing just well since then in terms of Texas looking pretty good with Tom Herman and Charlie Strong now at Alabama. And we saw what he did at his last job, going 10-2 early on. But then, I mean, you go 4-8 and get fired, and now we're having a question as to whether you should replace the Tom Herman. No way. No way.
Great questions from y'all, and great questions, great answers from Olivia and Robert. When we come back, we will take a dive into Twitter and see what's trending. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the 1-0 Sports Show. Let's dive into what's trending on the world of the internet, if that's the right way to phrase it. Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach makes the headlines once again with his bandwagon video. Take a look.
Looking for a bandwagon? Hop on.
All right, what else do you expect from the man himself, Mike Leach? What are reactions to it?
I mean, the pirate. You know when Mike Leach comes to your program, exactly what he's going to bring. He's going to swing his sword. He's wrote a whole book about it called "Swing Your Sword." I mean, hey, that probably has to be the greatest band-related video of all time in terms of like marching band. And that's not a knock. I was in marching band in high school, so I can say it, I guess, is what I'm saying. But classic Mike Leach, and I'm joining the bandwagon.
Olivia, are you hopping on the bandwagon?
Yeah, I gotta tip my hat to whoever directed that video and the creative geniuses of that. That was A+ marketing. They did a great job.
Yeah, I thought I was watching a movie when we were doing that. I mean, it was like really well edited, which I assume they have those editors, but still. The band with the wagon, I mean, it writes itself. Classic Mike Leach.
Yeah, hailstate.com or Hail State Productions. Really impressive video from them. Probably just let us know how we can apply for an internship or something over there. Just saying. People need to get paid in 2020. Let's move on to back to the NBA. We saw different teams all around the sports world trying different things with the crowd. But in the NBA, they're using a virtual screen, I think, in the arena with virtual fans. So if you can pick two to sit next to during a real NBA game, who would you pick for the virtual screen?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to look at the image because I remember seeing them on the actual stream. Shaquille O'Neal and President Obama, I think, would be awesome to sit next to. I think to be in between those guys would be electric. Undoubtedly, it goes without saying, lifetime experience. But I think, just thinking about those two guys, I have no qualms with any of them. I think it would be exciting. I think it'd be a moment for a lifetime. I'm going Shaq and Obama.
Olivia?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to sit courtside with, I mean, there's always, you see supermodels at many NBA games like Kendall Jenner, Gigi Hadid. But I think that would just be interesting because I would love to know if they actually know what's going on or if they're just there to be photographed.
Yeah, that's always the question whenever you see them anywhere, in my opinion. Jumping to the football field, we got a couple of mic'd up videos that went trending on Twitter. We're going to start with Phillip Rivers.
Can't play with 12, Greg! Hey, Greg, you can only play with 11, Greg! JT, don't dance with him. Run him over. Don't dance with him. You weren't even close to making that play. You got your hand on it. You weren't even close. Hey, pooch kick right over here at you, 9-9. Hey, the little blistered things, awesome. Hey, hey, hey! Oh, honey. Oh, whoop, whoop. Oh, ah, baby. Golly. Uh-oh. Shoot. Oh, my gosh. Shoot. That goes. Aggravates the stew out of me. Sheesh. Dang, that was a weird little sequence.
That was a weird little sequence right there.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Aggravates the stew out of me.
I was going to say, I mean, he's mastered the art of like keeping it clean, and he should be. I mean, he has 9 children. I just think it's interesting. It's another Colts quarterback. You look at Andrew Luck, videos of him cheering other guys for knocking him down. Just another Colts quarterback who's just a really wholesome guy, even on the field. No cursing, no swearing, nothing but positive things generally to say. I think that's really great. If you ask me what Phillip Rivers' mic'd up would sound like, I'd probably do some weird imitation that sounded exactly like that.
Olivia, real quick.
It just was wholesome and funny, and I think that guy, he must just be like a dad on the team. That just screamed dad jokes to me and dad vibes, so yeah.
But Phillip Rivers was not the only guy mic'd up during the weekend. We also got J.J. Watt, who got himself into a debate.
This is weird.
This whole game?
No, it's just dead silence. You can hear the blimp. That's how quiet it is.
It sounds like somebody's flying over.
Yeah, that's what it's doing.
Tell me like it's hovering right now. If you want to keep it technical, it's just chilling up there.
It is flying overhead.
It's hovering over top. It's not flying.
Oh, it's not flying? So that thing up in the air is not flying?
It's a form of flying. Hey, bro, is the blimp flying or hovering over top?
So you're telling me that thing in the air is not flying? What is hovering? Is hovering a form of flying?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like I did not know Plan 2 conversations extend all the way to the NFL field, but what are y'all's reactions to that video?
They should be focused on the game they're losing. As a Texans fan, stop worrying about anything else. You're losing.
Oh my God.
Game.
You know, I was going to come up with something witty, something about brand recognition, whatever. Olivia, she made probably the greatest point that we've made on the show today. They should have been focused on the game they were losing. That's the greatest answer I've ever heard.
Yeah, and there should be a red flag with the Texans' chemistry now with that huge disagreement right there. Let's move on to our college football playoff picks. I'm going to start with mine. I'm gonna go real quick with this one. Clemson #1, Miami, the only 3-0 team that's beaten somebody in America. #2, Georgia #3, Alabama #4. Robert, who are your top 4?
Well, I agree with Miami. I don't understand how Ohio State keeps getting ranked up highly. I can understand this is predictions, so mine are a little different. I do still see Ohio State not making the playoff, though. I got Alabama #1, Texas as my #2, facing Georgia in a rematch at #3. And #4, I think Clemson's body of work will just make them look weaker than the other undefeated, or at least Georgia with the one-loss team.
Yeah. Texas all the way up there, #2. Olivia?
Clemson, they're creating a dynasty. Alabama, you can't bet against them. 3, Ohio State. I think Big Ten starting is going to be really exciting to see. 4, Texas. I personally cannot bet against them. I got to go for them. So that's my pick.
I'm so against picking somebody in the top 4 without playing any snaps on the football field just yet. But
there's still Ohio State, Daniel.
It is Ohio State. It is Ohio State. When we come back, we will give you all the picks that you will need to maybe win some money. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to the One and O Sports Show for the final time this morning. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Shee, Olivia Guzman, and Robert Trevino joining us, and just feels good to say that once again. Let's get into our picks of the week, starting with the NBA Finals. The Lakers getting 7.5 points against Miami Heat in Game 2, which will be on Friday today. I'm going with the Heat because I saw both of y'all's picks, and I decided to go the other way. Robert?
Well, you spoiled my pick, Daniel, but I will say I'm going to put this on record. 4. Lakers in 4. I'm putting my reputation on the line. 4 games. Lakers. That's my bold take. It's a sweep.
Mine's Lakers in 5, but I think the Heat is going to take Game 3. But I think the Lakers will have this game.
That's fair. That's fair. Gentlemen's sweep.
Well, I'm officially joining the Heat Nation. I've always been a huge Heat fan, loyal Heat fan. Love what they're doing down in Miami, and I heart Pat Riley. Moving over to the football field, LSU at -20 versus Vanderbilt. I can't pick against LSU. I'm sorry, Thomas. I just can't. Olivia?
LSU. I think, yes, they lost last week, but they still are the national champs, and I think that they've got it against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Olivia's completely right. It's still LSU, and more importantly, it's still Vanderbilt. I got LSU in this one.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I can't even go against you guys, knowing even like I did with the Heat. Baylor getting -3 at West Virginia. Robert, let's start with you.
Well, I'm going to go Baylor on this one. I think the Big 12 has looked a little weak in the past couple of weeks, but I think Baylor specifically is going to tune up for this Big 12 game. I think on paper they look better than West Virginia, and since The spread's only 3 points. I'm going Baylor.
Completely agree. I got Baylor. Same exact reasoning.
Whenever you got to travel all the way to West Virginia for a game, something's going to give. And to me, the game itself will be the one that kind of ruins. I'm not finishing my train of thought there. Okay, anyways, going to Kansas State, getting -2.5 points, -2.5 points at home versus Texas Tech. Olivia, which team you got?
Tech. They put up a really good fight against Texas, and if they continue that, they got a bright season ahead of them. Give or take.
Oh, sorry. Oh, man, but to come so close to beating your arch rival at home and then to blow it so convincingly, I just think the hangover is going to be too much, especially they're traveling to Manhattan, Little Apple. I got Kansas State by 10 at least.
I got Texas Tech. Every team that Texas beats from this point on needs to be winning. It needs to win every single game, so I'm going with Texas Tech. Number 25, Memphis, -2.5, 2.5 points at SMU. I'm going with Shane Buechele and what he's doing down there in Southern Methodist University. Robert, who do you got?
Well, I'm going to go Memphis on this one, partly because they're the ranked team in this game, but partly because I don't really believe a little bit in SMU. I'm not buying all the hype from Buechele. Listen, he's great, but I think as a whole, Memphis is the better team.
I picked Memphis. Spread's going in their direction. They're the ranked team. Going Memphis.
All right, number 18, Oklahoma, -7 at Iowa State. Olivia, which team will win?
OU. That's an easy pick for me. OU, yes, they just had a big loss. However, they are Oklahoma, and you got to go OU.
I wrote down Iowa State. I cannot make that pick in all good faith. I am going to go with Oklahoma. They're not going to lose 2 weeks in a row, and they're not going to lose to Iowa State.
My heart says Iowa State. My brain goes with Oklahoma. And you know me if you know me well, I never go with my gut. I never do. I always go with the logic in my brain. Number 2, Alabama, getting 17.5 points versus the Texas A&M Aggies. Alabama will be hosting the game. Robert?
Well, this is one of those. I mean, how do they have 17.5 points? Well, it's because they're Alabama. They're the Crimson Tide. I'm going to stick with Nick Saban. COVID cannot stop Nick Saban. Nothing can stop Nick Saban in Alabama. Alabama, for sure.
I've never heard that as many Alabamas in a sentence, but go ahead.
Alabama will win.
I also agree. Alabama has it. Also, I can never get behind Texas A&M football. So whoever's playing Texas A&M, I got to go with the other team. And it just happens to be Alabama, who is Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide, and they've got this one.
Yeah, Alabama should be taking this one quite easily, in my opinion. 17.5 points is a little bit too low, just because my brain says so. Georgia versus Auburn. Georgia's getting 6.5 points, so about a touchdown of a room, or I guess that's how you say it now. Olivia, who's winning that one?
This is going to be a close game. However, I made this decision based on who the home team was going to be, which is Georgia. And I think that Georgia has it. It's in their home field. They have the home field advantage. They are the higher ranked team not by much. However, I think it's going to be Georgia.
Yeah, for me, I'm saying Georgia, I think, is supremely better than any other team in the SEC East. I'm with Olivia. This one's not going to be a blowout. Georgia's not going to run away with this one, but I could conceivably see them winning by 13, pulling away in the final 8 final minutes or so. I got Georgia.
I think it will be close as well, and I think it's a 50-50 between a 7-point win for Georgia and the other side of the coin flip. So I'm gonna go with Auburn since you guys picked Georgia. Texas, again, we talked about this one. Texas hosting TCU, and Texas is a 12-point favorite to win this one. Olivia?
I really hope the game against Tech gave the defense a nice kick in the butt, and they're going to show up this game and shut down TCU's offense. I have Texas winning this one. I don't know if they're going to completely cover the spread. However, I do think Texas will pull away with this one.
Yeah, me too. I think that it'll also help not only being at home, but also facing a quarterback for TCU who's not as experienced as Alan Bowman. We know Alan Bowman had some injury troubles the past couple of years for Texas Tech, but he was still consistent in the locker room. I think that gave Texas Tech really a great advantage that TCU just won't have. And like you said, they got a real kick in the butt, kick in the behind. I got Texas winning this one 21 or more.
Again, my heart tells me Texas, but my brain says go with TCU. So I'm going with TCU on this one. For the last game, the NFL game, it's a 12,
I was going to say
my
brain and my heart are saying Texas on this one.
It's a 13-point spread. Texas can still win it and not cover. Going to the NFL game, going back to the NFL, the last game of the week, the 49ers is a 7-point favorite versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Robert, who do you
I'm gonna once again pull a old switcheroo when I write it down in the sheet here. I'm gonna go with the 49ers. I think they've been looking great. I think any of the Super Bowl hangover that we might have seen it's not there anymore, and I think this team has a lot to build on. I think they get it done in prime time.
On the sheet, Daniel, you have 49ers, so I'm going to be that person who goes against. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. It's going to be a tight game. But I think that the Eagles are going to be the team that pulls away.
Yeah, I think for some reason, I think even with all those injuries, the Niners will still somehow get a win. We talked about how bad the NFC East is, and so I'm going with the Niners, and I'm definitely confident I'm starting my season with a 10-0 record for all of the picks. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Olivia and Robert, for joining us in this virtual studio, and thank you to all of the viewers who are spending your Friday morning with us. And that's all we have for you this week. Make sure you tune in next week and check out our sister shows. College Press Box will premiere on Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. and College Crossfire on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. I am Daniel Shi, along with Olivia and Robert and Thomas Fitch behind the Master Control. Have a great Friday and have a great weekend.